What's going on, everyone, and thanks for joining me for another great conversation. As always, I appreciate you guys. My next guest is somebody I've been following for quite a long time, since the days that I was coding Android apps, and he's been an inspiration to me. He's done apps like MyFitnessPal and Groupon. He's also into health and accountability. He's into Stoic Philosophy. He's into so many different things that I'm interested in, and it's a shame that this conversation only lasted an hour. I introduce to you the great and powerful Donn Felker. Cool. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I got Donn Felker here on the show. And for those of you who don't know Donn, not only are you going to find out about Donn, but I've actually been following Donn for a little while now. A few years ago, I actually was trying to learn, Android development, and Donn is a big figure, in my opinion, in that field, in that genre, and making it simple for everyday people to continue. But anyways, Donn, welcome to the show, man. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Jose. I appreciate it. It's a fantastic opportunity, and thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Like I still find it, mind blowing that I could reach out to somebody on the internet and they're willing to do this type of stuff with me. It's incredible.
Oh yeah, totally. It's I love doing this kind of stuff with anybody out there. I just happened to get lucky with Android early on and kind of built a name. So I'm just like anybody else, just a normal person who wakes up and puts my shoes on too. So thanks again for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, awesome. So before we get into the origins, because I did meet you through coding, and I know you're doing much more stuff than that, but let the listeners know a little bit about yourself before we continue going forward.
Yeah, so again, my name's Donn Felker. I've been, I guess you could say, mainly a software developer, also kind of entrepreneur in the software space. I've been developing software for over 20 years. I've written multiple books on Android development. I started very early on when the first Android device came out in Android, and just kind of built up throughout the years and wrote a couple of apps that a lot of people have probably used, such as the Groupon app, MyFitnessPal. I've worked on the American Express app and numerous other applications as well. And also have dabbled a lot in just kind of building businesses on the side. So I did run a membership site for about 5 years, which was known as Caster.io, which recently closed down. And that's where we taught individuals how to do programming tasks, mainly around mobile. And we did have some web stuff in there too. And then also dabble in a bunch of different languages. Right now I'm spending a lot of time working in Ruby on Rails, Tailwind CSS, Node.js, and React, as well as Flutter. So I'm kind of all over the place, but the background is software for sure.
Yeah, definitely. So what got you completely interested in the software stuff? I mean, I know that's not for everybody, but when you get into it, it seems to be a deep rabbit hole that you can fall into. So how did you get into coding?
Actually, I didn't fall in. I fell into coding on accident.
Nice.
So I was 20-something years old, early 20s, and I was back in the day, I used to race motocross for a small Suzuki shop in California. And so I eventually went to Motorcycle Mechanics Institute and was going to be a motorcycle mechanic. Never touched a computer in my life. Had a girlfriend. She was taking a long time to get ready. And I said, well, what am I supposed to do for 2 hours? I was getting impatient. And she said, well, hop on the internet. And this is 97, 98. And I said, well, what's the internet? And so this is before Google was around. And she pulled up a search engine, which was Alta Vista at the time, or Yahoo, one of those. And I typed in a band name, or she showed me how. I didn't know how to do it. And I found a band. And long story short, I was like, what is this internet thing? 2 weeks later, I bought a computer, and since then I have never really got off of it. And immediately, I've always been a builder in my life. So I've built, engines, and I built cabinets, and I worked with, woodworking and stuff like that. So now I saw a web page and I thought, that's cool. How do I make my own web page? And so that was kind of the rabbit hole that I hopped down into. And then I learned that it's very lucrative as a career versus a motorcycle mechanic. And I basically I finished the motorcycle school and then went back to college again to become a software engineer, and just kind of never stepped away from it.
Nice. Now, what was the language that you started using when you first got into it? I mean, on websites, it's HTML and CSS, or?
Yeah, early on, I don't even know if CSS had really come around at that point. There was some kind of basic stuff, but it was HTML was the first thing it did, and then JavaScript, to do some like image rollovers to change the background color of something. That was the first one. And then from there, I dabbled a lot with PHP, and then really classic ASP were the first couple of languages I learned.
All right, awesome. And when did Android come into play? Was that after a while, or earlier?
So 10 years later, actually,
Oh,
was when
wow. Okay.
Android came into play. So after that, I dove deep into .NET and became a .NET consultant and dove really deep into that and wrote magazine articles on it and spoke at conferences around .NET and happened to fall into Android completely on accident. I was working at a .NET consultancy and the Android phone had come out. And at the time I was in between clients, which when you're at a consultancy that you're not an independent consultant, you sit on the bench, which means you're back at the office waiting for another client.
Gotcha.
And you're supposed to learn something new to help, be more valuable to the consultancy. And at that time I had an Android phone. I thought, well, this is Java. I remember doing Java in college. Let me see if I can make an app. And so I ended up writing a couple of small playground and test apps, put them on what's known as the Android market at the time. And before you know it, that was back in the day when you'd publish a actual app, hit basically refresh on the screen, and your app was live. I mean, it was instantaneous.
Nice.
And you could see the downloads just creep up in real time. And back then there was less than 1,000 apps in the store. And so your apps would just get a ton of exposure. Immediately it picked up attention from Verizon, and they wanted me to start writing apps for the Droid phone. And then I reached out to my consultancy and said, hey, Verizon's wanting me to do Droid apps for the new Android phone that they have. And my consultancy's like, we don't do Android apps. That's not going to be a big thing. That's, we do .NET. So they're like, go ahead and do it yourself. So no problems. Like, you don't mind if I do it on the side? Like, no, it's not going to be a big thing. And fast forward, I continued doing it for many years and left that company and went out on my own ever since.
Yeah. Do you remember what that first app was, or the early apps that you did on the marketplace?
I think you're the first person that's ever asked what the first app was.
Oh, I'm naturally interested because I remember my first app. But what was yours?
All right, here we go. The first app that I wrote was, wow. All right. So the first app I wrote was called Slap That.
Okay. Hit me.
And so
no pun intended.
Basically that's what it was, is I wanted to use the accelerometer in the phone so I could swing the phone and then make an abrupt stop, and then it would make a smack sound. And so then
that's dope.
And so, someone will walk by, or you just swing and go smack like that. And you had a bunch of different smack sounds you could put in there. You could choose your smack sound, and you could adjust the sensitivity and stuff like that. And I was positive it was going to do great because, the fart apps did great and everything, but it didn't do good at all.
Yeah, I was about to say, I mean, with only 1,000 apps in the store, you're probably one of the streamlined headlining apps. I mean, and use of the accelerometer and being able to change sound effects is at that time. I mean, what were you working on? The G1? Was that the first Android?
Yeah, G1. Yeah, that was it.
Yeah. So you were making smack apps on the G1.
Yeah. So that was the first app I did, but nothing happened to it. After that, the next number, I'd probably say the next 30 to 50 apps I wrote were soundboards.
Whoa. Oh, okay. Wow.
And so the reason for that is, I didn't tell this story. I've told the story a couple of times, but not much. But early on, I made some soundboard applications, and back then it was the Wild West of development. And I just took random sound samples from TV shows I liked or that I thought were funny. They could be the Jersey Shore. They could have been a Dave Chappelle show. It could have been a movie. And I would just create a soundboard for that. And you could set that to your ringtone or your notification tone. And these took off like wildfire. Within a couple of months, I had over 5 million installs.
Whoa.
On all these. And I had said, well, let me see what it's like. I wonder if I could even make like $10 in a month on AdSense, because back in the day and on the websites, you could put AdSense on your site and you might make a couple of bucks a month, unless you're like a big like Scott Hanselman or Jeff Atwood kind of person, you couldn't make a big living off of it. Right. But I thought, well, let me try it on the apps. And so I put it on there, said, if I make 10 cents in the next day, I'm gonna consider it a win. So I put it on there at 6 o'clock at night. And I think this app maybe had 10,000 installs at the time. And I logged in the next morning at 7 when I woke up. So, a little over 12 hours. And there was already like $9 or $10 in the account. I was like, nice. In 12 hours. And that's when I thought, oh, whoa, this has a lot of possibility. And that's immediately at that point, I took everything that I learned and I scaled it. I wrote some PowerShell scripts to automate the development. So I actually had PowerShell scripts that generated Android apps for me. And I just had to plug in different images and text files. And I just scaled it out astronomically, so create a bunch of these. Started making decent money to the point where I could almost quit my job from soundboard apps. Well, and then you have to think about it. What was I doing? Probably not something really legal by using someone else's sound bites. And not thinking really too far in advance. MTV and Warner Brothers and everyone were not really too happy with me. So they reached out, sent me, cease and desist.
Wow.
And they reached out to Google and sent them DMCA takedown notices. I received so many DMCA takedown notices right away that I didn't have a chance to respond fast enough to them, and Google just closed my developer account.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So my first developer account that I had with Google is still closed. So I had to go open another one after that was that weird debacle. But that was my foray into Android to see how popular it was, and it was a fun ride.
Yeah, and it's come a long way, as I'm sure you know. Now, how do you feel about the process now to get on the App Store? It seems to be incredibly tedious, and I mean, I get it is to defend their company and to defend the brand and all that. But it's getting to the point where it may not even be worth it. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm of the same opinion. It's right now, it's just such a hassle. They have a very, they have a walled garden, and their moat is right now, they're protecting their moat, which is how they're going to make money. And the money is going to be in making sure that they're releasing the apps that are of high quality, that are not dangerous, security risks to the end users. But then also a lot of the stuff that goes in it is they're making sure that you're not, selling products and not using the built-in payment systems. 30%, which I know that the numbers have dropped recently. If it's 15 for certain rates, I forget what it is. I haven't looked it up, but I know the rates dropped recently.
Yeah.
But even that is pretty high. There's a lot of argument to say, well, they do offer you distribution. True. They do offer you, hosting. True. They do offer you some, a little bit of search engine exposure, but still that's kind of a stretch. So ultimately, it's very much of a walled garden. Apple has the same problem. And my heart has always been with the web. And it's one of the reasons I love the web is I can just hit ship right now, and every single one of my customers will get the brand new code the next time they refresh their page.
Yeah.
So I think it's a hassle. I think a lot of companies are seeing that now, and they're trying to figure out ways around it. I think we're going to see where, over the next 5-10 years, we'll see where this all goes.
Yeah. So now that you say web, how do you feel overall about, decentralization? I know that's a big word lately, especially in crypto, but how about a decentralized web? How do you feel about something like that?
If we can make it useful, that I think it'd be fantastic, just because of not having too much big tech overreach, which there's a lot of overreach in my opinion recently of what they say we can see or can't see. I'm not going to argue what is right or wrong. I think each person has their own definition of that.
Sure.
But I do think that there's there's a limit to where certain companies can get involved, and they do have to protect their own brand. I get that. That's so forth. But decentralized in itself is very interesting. I think we just have to solve the problem of scaling and speed, especially for any transactions. And that's kind of where a lot of the problems with some decentralization and crypto falls down, is that it's kind of slow. I'm not going to wait at my local grocery store for 7 minutes for a transaction to clear. That's the big problem, is like, what's the real use case here? There's a lot of like weird NFT things going around. I'm like, I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah.
But decentralized web, will it get there? Yeah, kind of. But at the same token, it's really difficult to have a decentralized web because you still kind of need some type of host to host some type of files to get to. So we're still relying on HTTP to be able to communicate with the backend, Ethereum or whatever, chain you happen to be using behind the scenes. So we're still very early. A lot of people think I was really late to Bitcoin or really late to Ethereum or whatever. We're still really in its infancy. We don't even really know what it can do yet. I still think we're beyond understanding what's there yet. But some things will evolve, I think, in the next 5 to 10 years again, and we'll have to see where it goes.
Yeah, definitely. This is the rabbit hole that I've been down lately, and I can't say too much about the web because I would be 100% with you, and I don't know the inner workings of the HTTPS protocol and all that stuff. But have you heard of the Lightning Network?
No, I haven't. No.
Yeah,
Explain.
yeah. The Lightning Network is solves that same problem that you are 100% nailed on the head, which is I don't want to wait at the grocery store for 7,
Yeah.
to 10 minutes for the block to be mined and for the transaction to go on the ledger.
Mhm.
And well, I'll say Lightning is attempting to do this. So now, what the Bitcoin developer community did is they built a second layer on top of Bitcoin, so a
Okay.
payment rail system.
Mhm.
And it's called Lightning. And the best analogy I could give for it is basically like going into a bar and opening up a tab, right? So
Okay.
you only open up one transaction when you open a channel, and then you could do infinite amount of transactions back and forth without having to go on the blockchain. And then when you close out this channel, that's the second transaction that finally says, well, Don, gave us this much, and now his change is this much. So
Gotcha.
back to the analogy is, waiting the 7 minutes is like swiping your card every time you want to have a drink. And Lightning is basically, hey, open up that tab. I'm going to have 1,000 drinks and I'll let you know afterwards.
Yeah,
So-
it's very much it's a change of operation. So you like if you're going to walk into a grocery store at that point, I might say, all right, well, swipe my card, which is my Bitcoin card. I'm going to swipe my Lightning card
Yep.
when I walk in, and it basically is going to authorize whatever amount and just reserve that and say, okay, now I can go in and then I can spend up to that amount. And if I've done it, then like you said, it gives me back $200 in change or whatever the amount is. That makes complete sense. And I think that's the thing that a lot of people have to realize is things are just going to be different than what we're used to.
Yeah, for sure. And then the beautiful part about us for creators, especially us podcasters, is Adam Curry and his guys over there have put together what they're calling Podcast 2.0.
Okay.
And Podcast 2.0 is built on Lightning. So now
Really?
what happens, Don, is basically, and this is happening to me now, I know you believe me, but I can show you on my phone now with certain, podcast index. It's a long story. But anyway, there's an index with Adam Curry and guys that basically put a public key inside of your RSS feed. And now you can listen to me and stream me stats direct as you're listening. Move the middle
Wow.
part, even remove the Anchors of the world, the YouTubes of the world, and all that. And then, Jose could stream the Fragmented podcast, direct Satoshis back and forth per minute, per second. And there's rooms where you can engage with your audience and actually like boost them up and send them sats and do this decentralized messaging, completely secure because it's all built on Lightning. So there's a lot of really cool stuff happening. And I see the possibilities of this going towards like, like Audible type things. So you're writing a book. I just finished writing a book. We could technically put this on a Lightning Network powered app. And instead of paying Audible $14.99 for a credit, we could literally pay the author that we want to listen to directly for the amount of time that we're consuming this. It's like the perfect value for value exchange.
Yeah. It is. And that's, to go down that same route, that's exactly why a lot of creators have stepped away from Amazon and they go to something like Gumroad or they go direct sale, is because they're just, they're trying to eliminate all those middlemen. And then especially if you're going to talk, there's a lot of people I know that talk about a lot of things that aren't popular with mainstream, and they might get targeted for some type of cancel culture thing. And at that point, like, they're looking for alternate ways to present their content or whatever. Now, again, I'm not saying you have to agree with it, but this sounds like an opportunity for anyone to kind of just, like you said, direct communication. I think it's going to be interesting to see what apps come around to make this much more feasible for, the typical end user, where I could go talk to someone at the office and say, hey, check out this app and listen to my podcast there. And they don't have to even know that it's running on Lightning. They just go search for Fragmented and boom, there it is. And they connect their account.
Yeah, I agree. I think the team or the person who figures out, how to basically make this easy on a UI level will basically steal the show that's coming up, because these things exist in different areas, but nobody's put them together. So right now, if you wanted to do this value for value, you would need only a handful of apps, and how you fund those apps with US dollars is not necessarily the easiest thing for an average person. But then you have a company like Zapp who does an app called Strike. And what they've basically done is they've done this system where, you live in Europe, I live in the US. I want to send you, $20, but you want it in euros and I have US dollars. So what happens here on the fly, without no wire, without no bank getting involved, is I send you the money. It flips to Lightning in the background on the fly. It gets over to you instantly with no wait. And then it flips into euros over there for you on your end, on your app. And this happens with very minimal fees, if any, because the Lightning Network doesn't have any fees. And it's really destroying the current shitty 7-day waiting wire period thing going on.
What's the name of that app again?
Oh, Strike. Yep, and
Oh,
it's
Strike.
from a
Okay.
gentleman and his team called Jack Maulers, and I think they're leading the way when it comes to basically the Lightning Initiative, and what their initiative is bringing banking to the unbanked in the world.
Yeah, that's gonna be. I'm interested to see how that evolves, because I've got a lot of friends over in India that had started moving all their stuff over to crypto because they said, "Look, we don't know how or what the government's going to do." And I'm like, "Well, what do you mean?" And one of them said that, you could have a lot of money in the bank, and then tomorrow their economists or their economy decides, "Hey, you know what? We're just going to devalue something," and that takes their net worth in half overnight. Something their entire families worked generations to build can get cut in half
Absolutely.
overnight. And so in the United States, a lot of us don't like that. Doesn't happen over here, really. I mean, we have small fluctuations, but it's like nothing like that. And so in these smaller countries, like that's a big deal. So keeping, like, to them, crypto is almost like is
Yes.
stable to them compared to their local environment. And that's what a lot of people don't understand. But the money transfer thing is huge.
Yeah.
Just recently, when I was running Caster, I had to pay one of my the employees that was working for me. He was in Nigeria, and we had a problem where we couldn't. We were using like TransferWise or whatever, and all of a sudden TransferWise stopped. Like they wouldn't, because of some banking regulations. Like, well, great.
Right.
I don't know how I'm going to pay this person. And at that point, it's like, okay, what about crypto? Can I pay you in crypto? And it wasn't a lot, it's like a couple $100s. And so, yeah, you can pay me in crypto. So that like literally opened up the opportunity for us to get him paid, which, again, comes from my account in USD, ends up over there, which I forget, what is it, Nigerian real or something like that. But yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, no, I won't. This is not my story. Jack Maulers tells a story where he's like, look, in El Salvador and places like this, you depend on money from the United States from your family, and then they send it Western Union. Western Union eats a big chunk of that, and then what most people don't know here in the U.S. is that in order for me to go get that money at the Western Union, I have to take a bus for an hour, right? And then I take the bus for an hour, but the problem is that the thugs already know who's coming to get money, so they're sitting outside the Western Union. Exactly. So now you come with half, and you got to take a shitty hour drive back to your. And now with Zapp, with the company Zapp and Strike, the app, they're able to just basically receive that right in the palm of their hands, as long as they have an internet connection, of course. So
yeah, and that goes back to the whole the value proposition of crypto. It's a value store. It's a very speculative, highly volatile value store. So I wouldn't put anything in there that you're afraid to lose. But if you have, your private key literally memorized, which there are people that do that, you could literally leave your country with your clothes on your back and millions of dollars on you in your brain. And that's
100%
possible.
incredible. I think the philosophy that people around the world see when it comes to crypto is definitely not what we see here in the States. We always think about this like stock thing where we can cash out and we can make some money. But similar to what you were explaining in India, I talked to a gentleman named Jan Pritzker, and he's the CTO of Swan Bitcoin. And he's from Russia. His family's from Russia. And he's like, look, my parents had to flee, and when they fled with nothing. They lost it all. They lost their store, they lost their wealth, they lost it all. If Bitcoin was around, like you said a little while ago, they would be able to transfer their wealth and be able to come to the States and continue off and pick up right where they left off. We don't care about that because we're spoiled. But it is a big thing. And then, like you said, the storage of wealth is big in Bitcoin specifically. Just because we see what happened in Venezuela, we see the inflation. COVID caused the Fed to basically pump a lot of money into the system, and it just makes it harder. Yeah, it makes it harder for us to live. I mean, as basic, folks, and I think, which is why I said a little while ago, a rabbit hole is what I call it best. I went down the Bitcoin rabbit hole trying to find a way to leverage money, and I ended up with this philosophy behind, what's happening and how we can basically get sovereignty from this. So, with this whole Lightning stuff we're talking about, I actually have a node in my house that runs 24/7. Nice. And I could basically bank myself. So, there's drawbacks that come with that. Like if it goes down, I have to troubleshoot it and get this thing back up. But there's a sovereignty to it, right? Like now my audience is streaming sats directly to me, and I don't have to, go to a bank. And the situation you explained where the bank debases the currency won't happen because I'm the bank. And it's truly amazing. But the Lightning Network is my point during this whole rant, is the Lightning Network is solving everything that everybody feared about crypto, which is that it's too slow, the gas fees are too high, things like that. And there's a lot of developers out here, which I know you respect just because you're a developer and you advocate for them. There's a lot of developers doing life-changing stuff out here on Bitcoin. Yeah.
There is, yeah. Yeah, I mean, 2 years ago, I don't know if I've ever shared it other than with a few friends, but 2 years ago, I built me and a friend of mine who's from India, we built a complete crypto trading platform. And it was so you could basically pool funds and kind of almost like a fund gathering for, new tokens and stuff like this. And it was all on the Ethereum blockchain for ERC20 tokens back in 2018. We built it. It was fully functional, operational. We had people who were interested in using it from various different groups in Europe and Russia and so forth. And then we got to, again, because the United States and its weird laws with crypto, I mean, if you just watch some of the documentaries on like Bitcoin and so forth, like a lot of people are in like jail because it's scary stuff actually. And I spoke to a very reputable crypto attorney over here in New Jersey, and it showed him the product. I said, all right, what are we worried about here? Is there anything to worry about? And he goes, yeah, you have a lot to worry about. You're technically an exchange. Oof. And we're like, he's like, because you're exchanging one coin for another. That's an exchange. He goes, you're exchanging money. So if anything goes through you or flows through you, you're an exchange. That's what the SEC is going to see you. And we started looking into how much it was going to be to get up and running. And eventually we just decided to fold it up. Like it just was not worth it financially. Now, if we decided to take this company and open it in Estonia or the Cayman Islands or one of those other places, it would have been a different thing. But then again, I would have had to live there half the year or whatever. And it's just, I have two small kids, and it just wasn't worth it. But I tell you what, I came out of it like you with a solid, different fundamental understanding of what crypto is to the rest of the world that I would have never had unless I went down that whole path.
Right. I agree. And it took COVID for me to figure it out. I mean, I went into crypto 2017, but I saw it more as a stock. I was just like, this is just a clean way to make some fiat money back. And yeah, now it's just a philosophy. Anyways, I could geek out about that all day. I literally I continue to fall down the rabbit hole every day, but it's the sovereignty thing. It's just one of those things, just taking power back, from certain individuals, certain entities, and the deal that these companies, especially in big tech, promised us in the beginning. So the technology wasn't there for us in the beginning to be able to advertise our companies, advertise our podcasts. So they stepped in and they were like, oh, cool. Like, well, we got a place for you to hang out and be able to talk to your friends and talk to all that. But they never told us that they were a publisher. And they probably still tell you that they're not. But with all the censoring going on, they're definitely acting like a publisher. Right. Yes, so that's where we move towards this whole decentralized stuff. But away from tech, Donn, I want to talk to you about, and I know you've posted about this before. Actually, I sent you an article of mine, which, thanks to you and your little push, I was able to finish the book and get it out. Man, awesome, I appreciate you for that. But Stoicism, what are your thoughts on Stoicism? Do you practice it often, daily?
Yeah, it's I don't know who said this. It might have been Tim Ferriss or someone else, and it was put this way, and it's the way I remember it. Stoicism is an operating system for life, and that's kind of the way I like to see it as. There's a lot of stuff in Stoicism, and just like any other philosophy, you can dive too deep into it and take it, and read into every single word about it and like dissect it. And that's not what I do. I'll kind of read a passage or read something from Stoicism and just kind of be like, oh, okay, I understand that, and I think it was Epictetus, for one thing that happened recently is my son dropped his iPad and broke the screen, and my kids were like, oh no, Dad's going to be so angry. And there's a saying that Epictetus says is like, the cup is already broken. And it might've been Seneca. One of those two said that. Sure. And basically what it is like, he has a nice cup and he's just imagining that cup is already broken. And the thought process of that is eventually that cup will probably break. You'll slip, you'll drop it, it'll break. You're not going to be upset about it. Why aren't you going to be upset? Because I already knew it was going to break and I'm not upset. I'll just go get another one. And the same thing happened to my kid's iPad. I mean, the screen's still broken. I got to take it in to get it fixed tomorrow. But I thought, I kind of knew that was going to happen eventually. And okay, it is what it is. Now let's go take care of it. And previously before that, you're very reactive, or at least I was very reactive with things I did. And that's just one small, simple example. And there's just so many different things about Stoicism. And one of the big ones is I have the dance of death. Oh, what is this saying? Let me look it up here. Yeah. Have you seen that one? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Dance of death? No, I have not seen that one.
It's a dance of death painting that you can get from the Daily Stoic.
Okay.
The Daily. I'm gonna look it up. Sorry here.
No, that's cool. Actually, the book that's holding up this camera right now is the Daily Stoic.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I've not.
Yeah. It's so it says here. What does it say? Okay, it's I'll have to send you the link
Sure.
if you want to see it. But basically, it's a photo of actually a painting of a skeleton holding a crossbow, and it's meant the portrait is actually meant to be hung at eye level. So when you look at the portrait, it looks like the skeleton's pointing the crossbow right at you. And the saying that it has is in French, but it's transcribed to as, "My arrow, I promise you, spares no one. You will all dance the ballet of which I sing."
Oof.
Which means you're all going to die.
Right.
Like, so it's a constant remander that, hey, we're all going to die. So what are you waiting for? And if you look back to the Steve Jobs Stanford speech, he talks basically about that. It's like, just go out there, be fearless, be foolish. And if you wake up every day and you don't enjoy what you're doing, change. Like, because you're eventually going to die, and you're no more naked than you are now than you were before. So just go do it.
Yeah, yeah.
So
right.
Stoicism's just been a big thing for me to realize that, when things happen in life, it just is what it is, and you kind of have to roll with it. And it's helped me a lot. And I've kind of read multiple different books, and I'd say I study it probably daily, or if not every other day, just by reading the Daily Stoic, or I'll reread an old book or read a passage out of Marcus Aurelius's Meditations.
Yep.
There's just so much content out there. And if you want to read like Epictetus's or Seneca's Letters of a Stoic,
Yep.
those things are very dense and challenging to get through. I spend a lot of time.
Yeah,
but you're into it too.
I got stuck on The Shortness of Life from Seneca. And it's just a power read. I also have Meditations out here. I just think it's one of those things where these guys actually studied life, right?
Yeah.
And they had no incentive to do so. They was just doing it because they were curious. And then it's like I tell people, like, this is free information in the sense that they didn't know who you were. They weren't writing this for you. They weren't planning to sell you any, course or anything. These guys were just journaling their feelings, their own weaknesses, their own flaws, but they were observing many, many things. I always like to use the example that, if Marcus Aurelius would take the example of his, of the previous emperors or whatever, he would just be a tyrant that would just lay on his ass all day and become fat. On the other hand, this guy was constantly picking himself apart, constantly improving, constantly making himself better. And I don't see why we don't model that now in this current time, especially when, what is it going to cost you to get meditations nowadays? Maybe like $10, maybe $15.
Yeah, it is. And some of them are free. I mean, you do have to be careful which one you get, because some of them are really hard to understand, because I think the original was in like Latin or whatever, and it depends on the translation you get. It's going to be hard to read. So I recommend the Gregory Hayes one.
Okay.
It's the black one with the white bird on it, I think.
Is it Redbird? That's the one I got.
Redbird.
Yeah.
The Redbird. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, cool stuff. And I fell in love with Marcus, and I fell in love with, and I use that word loosely, of course, because falling in love with somebody you don't know, that's a little strange, but falling in love with dead people. And their work is what I should say. And Seneca.
Yeah.
I found Seneca to be very interesting, and I just read, I don't know if you've read it, Jim Rohm's book, something about the death of I would have to get you the name. Dying Every Day in Nero's Court, I think is what it's called.
Oh no, I haven't read that.
Yeah, and Jim Rohn, basically the author, wrote this. It's depicted on truth and actual events that happened to Seneca during Nero's reign, but he wrote it more like if it was a movie. So you kind of felt like you were next to the cameraman, and he was just explaining these scenes play out. But it goes
fly on the wall.
Yeah, exactly. And it goes through Seneca's, exile and his return, and how he served under Nero, and it's sort of like Game of Thrones in a sense. Like you see, how Nero basically when the switch went off in his head, that he had to kind of do away with Seneca. And it's just a really incredible read. But the fact that Seneca went through all that duress, and he kind of lived this lifestyle that in his work was very stoic, but in real life was not, because he wasn't able to stop the tyrant that Nero was. That whole thing to me was very intriguing, because it's sort of like life, where we want to do something, but we can't really do it. Life is avoiding us, avoiding it from us.
Exactly.
So yeah.
What was your book? The title of your book?
My book is called Derailed, and the subtitle is actually Living in Chaotic Times, or Getting Back to the Beat of Life in Chaotic Times is the subtitle. But yeah, I just, I wrote 10 methods and test strategies that I use to avoid derailment.
Mm-hmm.
And it happened to me recently because when COVID hit, just like everybody else, I got derailed, right? I had a digital marketing
Yeah.
company that I was on the side that was doing really good, and I was on the come up. And then as my normal life and my routine started to deteriorate, which is like going to the gym and my kids going to school and
Mm-hmm.
all this, I started to deteriorate with it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I got to the summer and I figured out that, like you just said a little while ago, it's up to me to turn this around. It's nobody else. I
Mm-hmm.
haven't been able to salvage the digital marketing company, but I've come a longer way, and I've taken this podcasting thing more serious. I've done more things, and I wrote that book. And the steps in that book are literally what got me to get back on track. These things that I would do every day, like work out every single day, and meditate on mortality, which is a very stoic thing to do. Not comparing yourself to other people. So yeah, it's pretty good. It's a small read. It's not a long read at all. But I'm proud of it. And it sounds like we have an affinity for Ryan Holiday. And it was kind of inspired by Ryan in a little sense, but what I'm gonna say next was more inspired by Ryan Holiday, and I'm already working on the next one, right? Like, and he has this thing where he drops one and he's already rolling on the next one, and I appreciate that, right? And I want to leave a legacy for my kids, and I figured that even if these things don't sell a single copy, it's still something my kids could pick up as an asset in life, and be able to learn from it and stuff like that. So very proud of the work for sure.
This is really interesting stuff to me because I've written books and I'm writing more books.
Sure.
So I love talking about this. When you put this out, I assume it's on Amazon, right?
Correct. Yep.
Are you doing KDP, direct publishing from there so they can buy the physical book?
Yep. KDP publishing. And I did the audio book myself. I didn't do Audible.
Good.
Go ahead.
Okay. But you didn't put it on Audible?
No, I basically just built a sales funnel, or a funnel. It wasn't really a sales funnel, where the front end basically says, hey, you want paper book, go this way. But if you want the audiobook, and then I kind of have a video explaining why I like audiobooks more, just to kind of sell it a little bit. And then they go to that page and there's a one-time offer to get like some journal entry sheets and stuff like that. But then they actually get access to the audiobook and they can keep it in, an MP3 file, I believe is what it is.
Okay, excellent.
So that's how
I was wondering. Yeah, I've heard a lot about releasing it on an Audible version. A lot of people say the Audible book does a lot better on audible.com. So
yeah, well,
it'll be interesting.
Even personally on my level, I don't have it on Audible. The audiobook is doing much better than the physical copy book.
Yeah, people like to just listen to it. That's cool.
Yeah,
congratulations on shipping it, man.
I appreciate it. And we're on to work to the next one. It just got me more ambitious. But like I said, chapter 6, I believe, which is the chapter on mortality, I actually sent to you a few months ago. And you gave me nothing but like thumbs up, like, hey, man, you got to keep pushing. And at the time, none of the book was figured out. So I was like, I'll use this as a blog post,
Yeah, that's what you were saying. You were going to use it as a blog post. Yeah, and I was like, no, this is good stuff. You should keep writing. Like, why am I not seeing your stuff right?
Yeah. And you inspired that little gas because, sometimes it's, I followed you for a long time. You're somewhat of a role model to me. So it's like when you said thumbs up, it was different than a family member saying thumbs up.
Well, I appreciate that. No, it's important to get. I think anyone who's listening needs to understand that you have to reach outside of your direct network. So anyone within an arm's reach personally is always going to tell you and root you on to do the best thing. Oh, you're doing great. Continue on. Yeah, keep doing that. Yeah, I like it a lot. Even if they absolutely hate it, they're not going to squash your dreams. You have to go outside and talk to other people. Say, give me your honest feedback. Tell me if this sucks.
Right.
And then, you're not going to hurt my feelings. I really want to know how I can improve. And if you ask for criticism and from someone else who is willing to give it to you, that's where you're going to make the big growth and realize if, what you're doing is right or if you're on the wrong path or whatever. And you did that. But your stuff was really good. So congratulations.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. You're right. 100%. I talk to my wife all the time and she's like, you're being too hard on yourself, X, Y, Z, blah, blah. And it's like, nah, is that you are kind of geared to say that everything I do is fantastic. Like, it's just one of those things. And I love her for that, but it doesn't make the work any better.
No, it doesn't.
And I'm trying to explain that to her. But while we're in the topic of writing, how's it going for you? How far along are you in the book? What's the book about? Can we talk about that?
Yeah, so the first book that I'm working on right now is about consulting. I've been doing development for 20 years, but over 15 years of that, I've been doing some level of independent consulting. And other than software, the question I get asked most is, how do I do what you do? And then I ask, like, what do you mean? And they say, you're an independent consultant. I want to do that. I want to work for myself. I want to have that freedom, that autonomy. I want to bill high rates. And really what they're after is, when you get back down to it, it's just the autonomy. And the autonomy is given to you by billing at a higher rate so you can have that free time, so you can find the clients and work the projects that you want to work. And so over the number, I don't know, probably the last was 2021, I'd probably say the last 7 or 8 years, I have mentored 3 people on how to go from being a full-time employee to be an independent consultant. And I basically just taught them everything that I knew. And it works. Like, that blueprint absolutely works. They both became very successful
Nice.
independent consultants. They've both written books. They're both well-known folks now in their respective industries. And then I just thought, I'm like, wait, why don't I just put this into a book form where people can just follow along? And if you just literally follow these steps, and if I'm not lying, if you follow them, I guarantee you will find success, because it's such a proven method
Awesome.
to make things happen. And so I'm writing that, and it's how to start, survive, and thrive in the world of consulting. There's kind of like the working subtitle of it. I don't have the actual title yet. But it's going to go all the way from, hey, you need to start a consulting company. All right, cool. How do you start a company?
Right.
Do you need an LLC? Do you need an S corporation? How do you get an EIN number? Like, I walk you through everything, top to bottom.
That's awesome.
And then it's all the way into, how much do I need to bill? Well, where do I find my clients? How do I continually have clients? How do I make sure that if I don't have a client, I can have a gig? What's an evergreen source of client work so you never run out of clients? In the 10 to 12 plus years I've been doing independent consulting by myself, I, knock on wood, I have never had a down area in consulting. I worked all the way through the 2008 economic recession, no problems. I worked all the way through COVID, no problems. Now, luck is on my side, hopefully, that happened. But I also think I'd also like to believe it's a lot of hard work and grit that I've put in for the years prior to keep this flywheel going. And that's very much the analogy I like to use, is like, you just have to kind of do a lot of work up front, get this flywheel going, get your own marketing going, and eventually it'll start spinning off clients. And then I teach you how to continue your clients, how to fire a client. Sometimes clients are not good.
Oh yeah.
How do you collect on invoices? Because you're going to collect on them. They're going to be late. What do you do if you don't get paid? How do you handle a legal situation? So I'm going to walk through every single one of those things, and that'll be the first book that I put out. And then the one after that, that I'll be working on after that, is going to be basically how to just increase the luck of anything happening to you in your life. I've had a lot of luck in my life, and I've liked to think that it's a lot of hard work related.
Yeah.
You kind of create your own luck is one of my mantras.
Yeah.
And there's kind of a process that I've followed for that. So I'm going to kind of share that and put that into book form as well. And they'll be on Audible and all kinds of stuff too.
Yeah. Yeah. And at what point does opportunity meet preparation, right? It's one of those things. So I do agree. Like, I know a lot of people that say they're easy, God's blessing you, or whatever line that they like to put in there. But it's like, well, us humans physically do a lot of hard work to get to where we go to, and life rewards us for that hard work. So I agree with you 100%, man.
If I sit down tonight and we get off this call and I go in the other room and I hop on Netflix for the next 3 hours and I play some Fortnite for a couple of hours, and I burn 4 hours tonight doing that, and I do the same thing every single night, while you are at home hustling, building a SaaS app, at the same time recording more podcasts, writing another book. Let's just be honest. Who do you think is going to be more successful?
Right.
You are, because you're the one hustling. You're the one doing the work. And I think that's what a lot of people think, like, oh, you're just lucky. Like, no, like, luck didn't have anything to do with it. While everybody else was going out getting drinks and everything else, I'm back here cranking away. Now, again, there's going to be the argument of, well, you don't have a life. And that's just, I like to go do these things. That's fine. You can go do these things, but realize that it's not luck that made these things happen to me. It's me putting in the effort, and it just happens to be what I like to do. Sometimes I might sit down and watch a movie, and that's just that day, but I don't do it.
Yeah. I'm with you 100%. And we definitely live in that culture of like, just jealousy and envy, and not knowing what people go through to get to the point that they go through. Cause it's very easy to get to see a post and say, hey, he's a douchebag or whatever. But at the end of the day, is like that douchebag put in a lot of freaking work, and like you said, delayed a lot of gratification to be where he's at right now. Delayed gratification is one of my favorite things, by the way. It's just
that's it. If you, what was it? There was a study recently done. I'm forgetting what book I heard it in, but it's a study where some scientists were studying delayed gratification. And what they did is they took a bunch of kids who were like first or second grade, 9, 10, I don't know, 9, 10 years old.
Yep.
And they gave them a marshmallow. Have you heard about this, the marshmallow test?
I have, but please tell the listeners.
Yeah. So the marshmallow test is they give these kids one marshmallow and they say, look, if you don't eat this marshmallow, when we come back, we'll give you another marshmallow. Now, they didn't tell the kids how long they were going to be gone or nothing. And then they just observed them. And I don't know how long they were gone. It might have been an hour or so. But then they came back and some kids had eaten the marshmallow and some kids didn't because they were delaying their gratification and looking for the extra marshmallow. Then what the interesting part is they ended up following these kids around for many years into their adult lives and found out that the kids that delayed the gratification were much more successful in life and made much better decisions in life. So it was a very interesting correlation for delayed gratification.
Yeah. And just to jump on top of that same thing, I don't think it was the same study, but I also heard somebody put a twist on that basically says delaying gratification for these kids also involved a lot of trust.
Yeah.
And, a lot of kids don't grow up in the environment where they could trust their surroundings. They could trust, their parents may not be in the household, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that plays a lot into the, decision on should I wait and trust that I'm going to get an extra marshmallow or should I just go ahead and take this now? And that effect kind of spills over into like finances in life, right?
It
Like
does.
a lot of people don't like to save or build assets because they don't trust that these assets are going to do anything. And it's very hard to overcome that trust.
It is. I mean, you're growing up in your environment has a lot to do with where you end up in life. So it's not everything, but it definitely impacts it a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Since I only got you for a little bit here, let's shift over to health. I know you're into CrossFit a lot. I recently, since October, have been doing all kettlebell. I got rid of the barbell. Not just that I have anything against the barbell, but COVID hit. I didn't want to be in the gym, and kettlebells was the easiest, smallest space that I can get to compound this thing. So how do you go about working out?
So yeah, I've just been doing CrossFit for over a decade, and I'm not like a CrossFit zealot. I'm gonna tell you it's the best thing in the world. Not at all. People get injured in it all the time from stupid training and just doing dumb things. The majority of things you see online are dumb for CrossFit.
Yep.
That said, the reason I've went is because I call it the stupid workout. Is I don't want to think. And when I showed up to CrossFit, I was actually doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Nice.
And in the same place, the owner of the Jiu-Jitsu gym right next door owned a CrossFit gym. And I heard them dropping a bunch of barbells, and I looked through the door. I'm like, what's going on over here? And I looked over, and it looked like all of them were about to die. And I was like, wow, I got to try that. And so I went over and tried it. And I was like, oh, I show up every day. We do something completely different. And I learned some new skills. I'm like, oh, I like this. I don't have to think. And so that's what got me into it. It removed an additional multiple decisions for me. I didn't have to plan a workout or anything. So I eliminated and gave me a longer period of time before I reached decision fatigue throughout the day. And so that was my hack to getting into CrossFit. I just stayed with it. Right now, my average workout is I work out every day, and I'd probably say 3 of the 7 days is a CrossFit workout. The other 4 days is either some type of mobility work. Actually, one of those days is a mobility day, and then 3 of the other days right now is a bodybuilding day.
Okay.
I'm doing a different bodybuilding program. And it just ranges. Could be kettlebells, could be dumbbells, could be barbell. But I am a huge fan of kettlebells, and I'm interested to see what you know about it because I was just recently researching the RKC, the Russian kettlebell certification, as well as I think it's a Strong Lift Elites certification. I was looking at those because I'm kind of want to learn more about it. There's so much stuff you can do with it. And on top of that, you can have a lot of fun with kettlebells too. I recently bought a competition bell and I'm learning how to juggle that, which has been like actually really challenging and quite intensive for like heart rate training.
Sounds super cool. Yeah. I'm not that deep into it. I kind of just model what I see on like following Instagram guys who do kettlebells and stuff like that, and ladies. But to me, it was just, COVID hit, and that was the beginning reason. But after a while, I found out that I could get a much better overall workout. I can challenge myself more, and I could do it in a shorter allotted time, right? So I was doing like about an hour and a half at the gym when I was doing the typical, chest day, leg day type split. And I've been able to boil down to a nice 30 to 45 minutes. And I like that, I could tax the body and do it with real life movements.
Yes.
I love the thought of squatting heavy and deadlifting heavy and all that stuff. But I don't know if you agree, rarely in life are you going to have to deadlift anything that's extremely that heavy.
Yeah, I'm not going to be deadlifting a 400-pound thing anywhere around my house.
Right. So like you said a little while ago, the injuries stack up and all this stuff for bad form and all this stuff, all this crazy mechanical stuff that you have to do with the body. And at the end of the day, your goal is not to be a bodybuilder. So why are you doing bodybuilder stuff?
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't make sense. So that's what I was wrapped in. And then kettlebells came in, and like you said, it's fun, it's challenging. You can ramp up the difficulty at any point in time by either adding reps or adding weight, or maybe 2 kettlebells instead of 1.
Up in the intensity or anything.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what I've been doing. I'm doing 1 pood times 2. So I got 2. Is that 36 pounds, I believe? Is the Russian split for that. So I have 2 of those, and then I have 2 half a poods, which is 16 pounds. I think if I got that math right. And I basically just alternate different workouts and Turkish get-ups and kettlebell swings and stuff like that. But I've never gone to an actual CrossFit facility where maybe somebody can help me out with mechanical stuff. And that's kind of all I'm doing, which I know the body needs to mix it up. And I kind of fear that the kettlebells alone, it's not enough of a mix-up for the body.
You can do a ton. You'd be surprised, man. I mean, I know guys that are just jacked, just completely off of kettlebells. I mean, I'll see them grab, for example, one of the cash outs that I like to do is take, after I get a workout in, whatever it is, take 2 44-pound kettlebells and go for a quarter-mile walk. Goal is to not put it down.
Nice.
That right there will tax your shoulders, your grip strength, your forearms. You're doing farmer carry for the long period of time. You're just building natural strength. There's those ones you could just go for a nice long walk holding like a 25 or 36 pound, bell overhead, walking overhead. You can do walking overhead lunges. I was watching, what's his name's Marcus Philly on Instagram. He has so much good content for kettlebell stuff. I don't know.
Oh, is it Marcus Philly? I'm going to have to take that one down.
Yeah, Marcus Philly. I'll send it to you on Instagram. And then there's another guy named Daring 101. He does all the kettlebell flips. That's just amazing to watch.
Yeah, I've seen a few of those guys.
Yeah, but it's amazing. But so much stuff you can do with kettlebells. But to kind of wrap it up for the health stuff, during the pandemic, you mentioned you wanted to get some more control into like your life. Things are kind of just, everybody's life was falling apart. I felt the same way very early on. Within the first month, I was like, this is not good. And so in May, I started the 75 Hard program, and I finished that. And that's, you work out twice a day. One of them has to be outside. And that was a complete game changer for me. And I've basically kept that going since then. And I'm on day 315 right now, I think it is, or I haven't stopped working out. And every day is the goal of like minimum just 45 minutes of movement.
Yeah.
And sometimes that might be hopping on my air bike here and popping on a YouTube video or like a Udemy video and learning something while I'm pedaling on the bike, burning up to 300 or 400 calories in 45 minutes. And that's my workout. And the next day it might be, bench or sandbag carries or something like that. So it's all over the place. Yeah,
super dope. Before we pivot from the health, I got one more question for you. Intermittent fasting.
Yeah.
I do it. I do the 16-8 split. I reached out to you once before. This was a while ago. I was told when I was introduced to intermittent fasting not to work out during my fasting window. You told me you do. You want to talk about that real quick?
Yeah, so I learned about intermittent fasting early 2015 from Brad Pilon. He wrote the book called Eat, Stop, Eat. That's where I've got like 90% of my fasting information from. I've even sent him direct messages. He replies. Long story short, I do a 16-8 protocol. So I stop eating at 8 p.m. I start eating the next day at 12. Now that varies. I'm not super mega strict on it. Like tonight, I didn't get a chance to eat dinner tonight. I probably won't get a chance to eat dinner till 9 p.m. Eastern tonight. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to eat. I'll get done eating around 9:30, which means tomorrow I fast till 1:30. Right. So I'm just getting in, a 16-8 split again. Now I may have had a longer window today to eat, but over time that averages out. I do work out in the mornings, but also to continue the fasting thing, once a week, I try to do a 22 to 24 hour fast. And that will be from a 4 or 5 p.m. to 4 or 5 p.m. the next day. And that kind of just resets everything for me. I'm pretty lean. I'm under 10% body fat, and I have been for, I don't know, 2 years now. But I have been slowly gaining lean mass. So in the last, was it May or April? So last 6 months, I've gained 10 pounds of basically lean mass. And that's just been through being slow and being consistent about it. And as for working out during fasting, I definitely do. I wake up in the morning around 4:30 to 5, have a couple cups of tea, take some pre-workout that's 0 calorie. It's caffeinated. So some people don't, the fasting, hardcore fasting folks will say that I'm not doing it properly. That's okay. This is just the way of style that I do it. I'm at a zero calorie at that point. I'll take pre-workout, I'll go to the gym, I'll do essential amino acids afterwards, and then I'll do a green drink that does have 28 calories in it. Now, I'm following the protocol given by Brad Pilon in his book, and he basically says, look, as long as you're not going over 30 to 40 calories inside of your fasting window from the 12-hour period on, you're not really going to, flood your liver with, glycogen, and it's not going to start producing stuff to pop you out of a fast. So that's what I've been doing, and I've been working out in a fasted state for 4 to 5 years now.
Awesome. Cool. Well, we're going to have to talk about that on the side or whatever. So the last question that I ask all my guests, and you can do this quick because I know your time is brief here.
Yeah.
How do you go about fear conquering?
That's a really good question. I just read a book on this, which was it's an interesting book here. I'm going to pull up the title because I think you might find it valuable and the listeners might find it valuable because it's still something that I struggle with, of how do I get past this fear of doing something in the public or whatever. And the book is called The Courage to Be Disliked. And it's if I were to give it, 1 out of, how many stars would I get out of 5? I'd give it like a 4. Because it was so different and unique. I think I need to listen to it again because there's so much action packed in there. And it's a conversation between a younger gentleman and an older wise sage, basically saying, well, what about X, Y, and Z? And they explain a lot of stuff about why people feel a certain way. And it basically all boils down to relationships, like how you feel with the relationships. The other book that I'm about halfway through that's very interesting in the same topic is Rejection Proof. And it's actually a book where a guy goes through 100 days of rejection. He goes out and tries to get rejected 100 days, like not like a date, but just does like really weird stuff.
Yeah.
Like he'll just like go into like a grocery store and be like, hey, can you give me a tour of the warehouse? They're just like, no. And he's like, okay, cool. And because he's just scared to ask that question. A lot of people are scared to go talk to the clerk at the grocery store. A lot of people are scared to talk to their neighbor. So in regards to me, fear, I read a couple of books close to 15, 20 years ago, and I wrote down a note that I kept around for a very long time. And it just says 3 words on it. It says, action cures fear. And that's something I have to remind myself at all times, is action cures fear. So if I'm scared to do something, I need to act on it. And that could be if it's writing a blog post, if that means it's going out public speaking, anything. I mean, there was a time, I've spoken to crowds of 500 plus people now. There was a time, not even, I'd probably say 15 years ago, speaking in front of 10 peers, I would get a panic attack. Right. And I'd be profusely sweating and I couldn't do it. And so I knew it was something I had to conquer. And so I told myself, I have to just go face this fear. And so that's basically what it's been, is just going out and doing it over and over and over. And then realizing afterwards, okay, nothing bad happened. I didn't die. I'm okay. Cool. Let's go do it again. What did I learn? Try to make it better. But it always comes back to action cures fear.
Love that. Love that. Donn, I appreciate you so much. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your knowledge, your motivation. Whether you know it or not, you're extremely motivating on my feed, and I need more people like you. I hope this isn't the last time we talk, and thanks for your time, man. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. It's an honor. Thanks for reaching out. And if anybody has any questions, feel free to reach out.
Yeah. Did you want to leave the fans with a call to action, any place they can see your stuff? I'll leave the links in the description, but I don't know if you wanted a specific one.
Yeah, no, you can check out the links in the description. The best way to probably reach out to me is going to be on Twitter. So hit that link on Twitter that's left in the show notes, and I'll look forward to talking to you.
Awesome. Donn, thank you so much. Guys, till next week. Later. Thanks for joining me for another great conversation. I hope you guys got so much out of that. I know I did, and I could talk to Donn and people like Donn for hours and hours and hours. It's probably some of my favorite conversations. It's important to be self-accountable. It's important to always keep looking forward, and it's important to always conquer fear. As always, guys, if you appreciate this episode, please rate, share, and subscribe so I can continue to have the conversations I love to have, and you can continue to get the conversations you love to listen to. As always, guys, take care. Later. The Jose Burgos podcast is a Spotlight Coalition podcast. For more great content just like this and other impressive creators, please go check out spotlightcoalition.com/podcast. You can also check us out on the Bitcoin Lightning Network and be able to stream ad-free and be able to provide this show value for value and be able to pay only for the value that you get in return instead of wasting all of your subscription on a whole bunch of other podcasts that you don't listen to. For more information on the Lightning Network and the Podcast Index, please Google those and check them out or reach out to me for more info. I appreciate you guys. Later.